Counselor, is the Southern District perhaps the president's worst nightmare?
I think in some ways, yes, and here's why. The Southern District of New York, the prosecutors and the agents that they work with are some of the best investigators around in the Department of Justice in the country. And I think it's fair to say that Donald Trump was not running his business, for decades as someone who was expecting that there would be a microscope over it at some point. And now there is, and that microscope is very powerful in the form of the Southern District and the agents that they work with. So I think you take that combination of the way in which I believe he likely conducted his business and these investigators looking at it, and that's going to, I think, be real trouble for the president.
How long did you work at the Southern District?
In total, 16 and a half years.
16 and a half years?
Yes.
Wow.
Loved every one of them.
Well, so when we hear so much about the independence of the Southern District, is that something that's an independent from political influence? Is that something that's accurate?
I think it's absolutely accurate to say that the Southern District is independent in the sense that it truly, as an institution, it is drilled in your head from the day you get there, from the top down, and every day after, that you look at the facts, you look at what possible violations of law have occurred, and you don't look at whose party someone belongs to. And that's why you saw, you're very familiar with, big prosecutions come out of there and investigations of Democrats and Republicans, rich people, not rich people. It truly didn't matter. It was about the facts of the case. And prosecutors love to make cases, no matter who they're against. If they're looking at a case and they're going to follow the facts and they say, wow, I have charges here, they're not going to say, but wait a minute, I'm not going to be influenced. And they're not intimidated by powerful defense attorneys. And that, I think, is part of it as well. But they're not independent from the Department of Justice. They are still within the Department of Justice and need to follow the rules and policies and regulations of the Department of Justice.
Why has the current U.S. Attorney, Mr. Berman, why has he exceeded in some areas? Why has he exceeded expectations?
Well, I think, first of all, the expectations were probably low, not because of him, but because of this president. Because we've seen time and time again, the president, people around the president willing to cross boundaries that weren't crossed before, of mixing of politics and law enforcement. The president is willing to exert pressures in a way that no president really has in a long time, certainly since Nixon. So I think when you have that setting, people sort of assume, well, whoever he puts in is going to bend to that, is going to be susceptible to that. And so far from everything we've seen, I think that's just not true. Mr. Berman has come across, I think, as a man of integrity, a person who recused himself from an important case, and turned it over to career prosecutors, which is what you want. You want people who are just absolutely free from that political influence, especially right now, and is overseeing cases that I'm sure do not make the president happy. We've even heard about specifics of the president trying to interfere in the Southern District of New York with his acting attorney general, and that does not seem to have worked.
Final question, Counselor, because you've been fantastic. Is there something as it relates to the Southern District that I didn't ask you that you feel needs to be on the record here?
No, I think you hit on the main things here, which are that the Southern District of New York and the agents that they work with, I believe, from everything I know, having been there for so long, are really going to follow these facts. If that means that there are cases to be made against people and they are allowed to bring charges against those people or entities, they will. If the facts are exonerating and there are not criminal charges to bring, they won't, and they won't be afraid to say that either.